The fury of Kratos returns in this prequel to Santa Monica's blood-soaked franchise, God of War Ascension. Will this be just as immersive this time around, or will it feel too much like the same old thing? Hey everybody, welcome to the GamerNerdz. I'm Voyce. Let's get into the review of God of War Ascension. It seems like everyone right now is doing prequels, Gears of War Judgment, Tomb Raider, although it's not really a prequel, it's a reboot, but still. Let's start off with the story of God of War Ascension. Pretty much Kratos finds himself imprisoned by the Furies for having tried to break his oath with Ares. And the story pretty much revolves around Kratos trying to break the illusion of the Furies. Now I'm not going to get into what exactly that means because I don't want to spoil the game for you, but let's get into what I did like or did not like about the story. Now, one thing I will say about God of War Ascension is that the story pretty much takes a backseat to the gameplay, which is kind of weird to say in a God of War game, which are already heavy on the action. It just seems this time around the story really did take a backseat. You'll go through long stretches of gameplay where there will not be a cutscene, so you'll pretty much just be playing the game, not necessarily remembering why you're doing what you're doing, and just doing things, killing enemies. And although, listen, it's all fun, and I will get into gameplay after, you will just kind of forget what the story is or what's happening in the game until eventually you get to a cutscene, there's more revelation to the story, and then bam, back to the action. And honestly, I don't necessarily like that form of storytelling. A game like Tomb Raider still managed to keep the pacing of the story going, but when the story of a game is only revealed in cutscenes, it kind of creates a disconnect where you're just waiting for a cutscene, and in between you're just playing the game and not necessarily feeling like you're doing anything constructive. And that's how I felt in God of War Ascension. Now, the story that is there is interesting. The whole pre-story of Kratos' interaction with the Furies and his desire to break free from Ares, with the way it's implemented, you don't really feel immersed into that experience, and it's unfortunate because I did love the stories in past God of War games. I did feel God of War 3 kind of did the same thing in letting go of the story a little bit, but I feel in this one it really dropped the ball. There are so little cutscenes in the game that it really just feels like the story was just kind of sprinkled around the game. And sadly though, this game just didn't have that emotional impact that it was going for. It didn't have that same emotional connection that you had to Kratos in previous games. And anything that you did learn, you kind of felt like, I already know. But let's be honest, we pretty much play God of War games for the intense action, the brutal kills. It all returns in full force in God of War Ascension. Kratos will dismember enemies, rip open their torsos, split their faces in half. It does feel a little bit more brutal, more gory, more bloody than previous God of War games, and that says a lot, because God of War 3 was pretty damn bad. Now, if you played previous God of War games, this pretty much plays the same way, which is a good thing because God of War games are hella fun. Everything from the high action gameplay to the exploration to the puzzles, it's all here. In fact, some of the puzzles will be kind of tough, but at the same time, the fact that it pretty much plays exactly the same way makes you feel a little bit on the deja vu side of things. This being the 4th home console game, it kind of feels like it's showing its age at this point, and it's kind of sad because I love the God of War franchise. By the end of the game, I just felt like I was going through the motions, and I really wasn't having as much fun as I expected to have playing this game. There are new things. There's a new rage meter that you fill up with these golden orbs. The more it fills up, the more damage Kratos will do, the more flashy his attacks will become, and if you get hit, you lose part of it, so it adds a level of strategy to your gameplay. But one of the things I really liked about God of War Ascension is the fact that you no longer have to go into your inventory to switch weapons. You can pretty much switch weapons on the fly as you're playing, which means that you are not disconnected from the experience, and I like that. With that being said, you don't necessarily have new weapons. What you do end up getting are new attachments for your Blade of Chaos. For example, there's fire damage you can do, ice damage, whatever it is that Hades gives you. Another really cool thing they've included in this game are the inclusion of secondary weapons. You can pretty much pick up weapons and discard them if you don't like them. It kind of feels like they took that directly from All-Star Battle Royale. But anyway, now anyone who's played any of the God of War games is no stranger to QuickTime events. Pretty much the series pioneered QuickTime events, and we all know how I feel about QuickTime events. I just don't like them. It just takes me out of the experience, but that's just my personal opinion. But I will say, the God of War series has always done it well, and the way Kratos takes down some of the more powerful enemies is just kind of brutal. But your biggest enemy in God of War Ascension will be the camera. The fact that you cannot adjust the camera has continued to bother me in the God of War franchise and continues to bother me in this one. At the end of the day, the gameplay is intact, it is still fun, but it is too similar to past God of War games, and for me, I just felt like I was going through the motions, especially towards the end of the game. The multiplayer in God of War Ascension, honestly, I don't really feel like it needed to exist. I'm not saying it's bad or anything, anything, but I do feel like a lot of games right now are just kind of tacking on multiplayer, and that's how it feels in God of War Ascension. It's fun-ish. So let's get into the way the game looks and sounds, and this is probably where the game really shines. This is a bloody, fantastic looking game. Everything from character design to architecture to artistic design to even the granular details when the camera zooms in on Kratos' face, it looks bloody amazing. Now, the jump from God of War 3 to God of War Ascension from a graphical point of view, it may not be that huge of a leap, but it's still one of those games that showcases the power of your PS3. Music is fantastic. It'll get you pumped up, these orchestra hits, and voice acting, as you would expect, is top notch. The only downside is the fact that there are very little cutscenes in the game, so you don't really get to hear Kratos actually speak that much in the game, which is kind of defeatist. With all this being said, God of War Ascension is a fantastic game. I love playing it. Unfortunately, the story does take too much of a backseat, and gameplay, although it's fun, doesn't really do that much to reinvigorate it. But I still encourage you to pick up this game, especially if you're a big fan of the God of War franchise. But for me, I just kind of felt like I was going through the motions. So thanks for watching. That was my honest review of God of War Ascension. But for those of you who played it, what did you think about it? Leave your thoughts in a comment below, and while you're at it, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. We'll see you next time on The GamerNerdz.
Come, champion. Show me your strength.
No, me.
They are nothing. Come with me and experience the greatest of pleasures.